been about 6 months since I've been on here. I've had a lot going on. I enrolled my son into an online private school, which is strictly online, and I'm very happy with it. However, the curriculum is quite intense, but we get to access the curriculum whenever we want to, and it's going to start again in 3 weeks. But one thing I really felt led to talk about is all the elections that are happening everywhere and how voting actually happens. Depending on how new to the faith you are, this might be a verse that is really surprising to some. But I want you to keep this in mind, that God used men as pens to write his word. So everything in the Bible is true. Now, listen to this. In Daniel chapter 2, verse 21, Daniel is praising God as he is asking him for an interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, because he's freaked out about some dream that he had, and he's ready to kill all the wise men because they can't interpret his dream. So Daniel's about to petition the Lord, and how he starts is with praising God. And this is what he says. He says, he, meaning God, changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. Now think about that. He deposes kings and raises up others. That might be kind of a hard verse to take in. What can we make of this? Well, we do know that Satan is the ruler of this world, but that God still has the ultimate control, and that we basically need to resist the devil. So the first tip is to make sure that we put God first. Matthew chapter 3, verse 33 says, "But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." Once you start doing that, you'll be sure to check yourself and to make sure to, second, love your neighbor as yourself. In Matthew chapter 22, verse 37 to 40, it also includes, besides loving God first, it says, "This is the great and first commandment," which is, seeking God first, loving God first with all your heart and your mind. It says, "And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets." The third suggestion is, to whatever capacity, make sure you teach your kids about God. I get that for some parents, teaching your kids might be a super daunting task. For my son in particular, when he was younger, we started with this show called Superbook. That was awesome. So I definitely recommend that one. And then, of course, there is various reading levels of kids' illustrated Bible books that you can get them started on as well. A verse that strongly supports this says, "Whosoever shall receive this child in my name receives me, and whosoever shall receive me receiveth him that sent me." That's in Luke chapter 9, verse 48. Okay, so those three things lead into what we're told in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14, which says, "If my people, which are called and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land." With all that said, do not try to play God. If you see healing and restoration come, this is no time to be lazy and ignore God or replace him with other idols. You need to give him the respect and the praise and remain obedient to him. Because if you read the rest of 2 Chronicles and even the book of Judges, you will find that God will set certain individuals to help his people, even in a wicked, crazy land. But God gets to a point where enough can be enough. And if you look at the example of ancient Israel, there was a time for about 2,000 years where they were not a land. They didn't become a land again until 1948. Everybody needs to understand that regardless of the televised narrative regarding an election or the abundance of counter evidence of what happened in an election is, revealed online, it doesn't matter. It actually really doesn't matter. It's a nation's attitude towards God that determines how the vote goes. It truly is. A nation's attitude towards God will determine the vote, but it starts at an individual level.